So in today's video, we're going to take a look at what's going to happen if Soviet Union comes back in 2024. And this is not one of those scenarios where Russia invades some of their post-Soviet states to reform the Soviet Union, but rather it's a scenario where the Soviet Union just magically pops up on the map. Yeah, let's get right into the video. But before starting the video, let me tell you that major alliances like NATO, the EU or the UN, they do not exist, because if NATO would exist, they would not let Russia to expand, or maybe the Soviet Union to expand. So yeah, now let's get into the wars. The Soviets are gonna have some agendas, and they're gonna be invading some very specific countries, and the good thing for the Soviet Union is that no one is gonna stop them. So yeah, now let's get into the wars. In the very beginning, we can see that Mongolia got completely annexed by Soviet Union, and I didn't show an invasion because Mongolia is a very weak country, and the Soviet Union would probably conquer them in 2 days. But moving on, the next country which the USSR wants to invade is Romania. And also keep in mind that this isn't just Russia we are talking about, this is the entirety of the Soviet Union, which would be very strong considering the fact that there are countries like Russia, Ukraine, the Baltic states, and the entirety of Central Asia. But yeah, Romania got absolutely devastated by the Soviet army. And as a peace treaty, we can see that Romania got completely annexed by the Soviet Union. And next up, they're going to be invading Bulgaria, Hungary, and Slovakia. Now for Hungary and Slovakia, it's a different kind of case because the Soviets only want a political leader who bows their head to Moscow. So yeah, the Soviet Union is not interested in annexing these countries, but that's not the case for Bulgaria. And unfortunately, the Bulgarians lose their capital city within a week, and the rest of the country just surrenders. We can see that the Soviet troops have also entered Slovakia and Hungary. Budapest is captured, and Hungary just surrenders. And Slovakia also slowly gets absolutely devastated by the Soviet troops. And now it's time to look at a peace negotiation. And if we take a look at this peace negotiation, we can see that all of Bulgaria got completely annexed by the Soviet Union, whereas Hungary and Slovakia are not vassal states to the Soviet Union, but there is a more pro-Soviet political leader running their countries. But yeah, now the Soviet Union has only one country to invade in Eastern Europe, and we can see that the Soviet troops have pushed into Poland, and thus they take the Polish coastline. They also start an invasion from the south, which goes extremely well, but after losing their capital city and this half surrendering, Poland was left with no choice but to go ahead and surrender. And in a peace treaty, we can see that all of Poland got completely annexed by the Soviet Union. And seeing this, Germany is also going to build up their military. But yeah, the Soviet Union is almost done in Eastern Europe. But in the Balkans, there is a very interesting event taking place. And we can see that Serbia, with the help of the Soviet Union, now wants to reform Yugoslavia. And thus we can see that Serbia declares war on all these countries who were in Yugoslavia. But keep in mind that the military that Serbia currently has is coming 90% from the Soviet Union. So yeah, that's how they managed to declare war on all these countries. And the first to go out was Kosovo, following North Macedonia. Montenegro doesn't exist. Rebellions pop up in Bosnia, and thus they take over the government. Croatia falls within 2 weeks, and Slovenia ceased to exist. But keep in mind that the military that Serbia had was 90% from the Soviet Union. But yeah, let's take a look at this peace negotiation. And yeah, this kind of happened. And now the Soviet Union has some very strong allies in Eastern Europe. But moving on, the next country which the Soviet Union wants to invade is Iran. And I know that this would never happen, but I guess the Soviets want an access to the Arabian Sea and also to the Iranian oil fields, which could benefit the Soviet Union a lot. But in the beginning of the war, we can see that the Iranian troops are also pushing into the Soviet Union, and they're making some significant gains in modern-day Turkmenistan, and they're doing surprisingly well against the Soviet Union. But finally, the Soviet troops arrive from Eastern Europe, and now we can see that there is a very slow push into Iran by the Soviet troops. The troops up here rush back to their capital city, which is Tehran, to defend it against any Soviet attack, which results in the Soviets pushing back the Iranians. And we can see that the Soviets have successfully taken the northern coastline of Iran, and after a decisive military campaign and a lot of casualties on both sides, we can see that the capital city of Iran is taken. We can see that the Soviets have reached the oil fields of Iran. This part ultimately surrenders, and now the Soviet troops accelerate their push into Iran, and after taking their major cities, the remainder of Iran finally goes ahead and surrenders. And in a peace treaty here, we can see that all of these parts of Iran were taken by the Soviet Union. Now the Soviets have access to the Arabian Sea, and the remaining country of Iran is now a vassal state to the Soviet government. But as of now, the Soviets only have one more country to invade, and that country is Finland. We can see that the Finnish troops are pushing into Russia, and thus they cut off this part of Russia, which ultimately surrenders. And we can see that the Finnish troops have successfully taken St. Petersburg, and the Finnish troops are doing pretty well, but now there is this kind of stalemate with the Russians. And as of now, the Russians have arrived from Iran, so they push back the Finnish troops and ultimately take St. Petersburg back, and they also start their own offensive into Finland. And unfortunately for Finland, the Soviets learned from their mistakes, and ultimately with the capital city gone and all of their troops being here, the countryside of Finland is not doing well against the Russians. The 1 million troops in here arrive and they try to re-liberate the country, but it was too late as another Russian army arrives, or maybe a Soviet army arrives, and with that we can see that the remaining troops just go ahead and surrender. And in a peace treaty we can see that all of Finland got completely annexed by the Soviet Union. But also this is gonna be it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and tell me what you guys want to see in the future. And thank you for watching.